This podcast is a member of the Red 5 Network. For more Red 5 Network podcasts and content creators, visit bio.link/red5.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
And greetings, everyone in the Scuttlebutt Nation. This is Ro from the Scarif Scuttlebutt podcast. We're doing a special recording tonight for a special show on May 25th, the actual Star Wars Day. But initially, I decided that I was not going to do this live. But I said, you know what? I got some handsome fellas in the panel, so let's do this live. So welcome everybody to a recording of the Scarif Scuttlebutt podcast for a special show. I've got some wonderful people in the panel. Let's go over their names and see who they are. First of all, in the top quadrant, I've got Daniel. Daniel, what's happening?
Hey, not much, man. How you doing, Ro?
Pretty good. Has your wife confirmed that we've gone live now?
Yeah, I think that she has. Well, actually, I don't think she's confirmed it, but I don't know if she's watching yet, but she'll know now.
Excellent. Good to have you. And David from the northern regions of space. How you doing, man?
I'm good, Ro. It's been a while. How you been?
It's been a while. It's been a minute. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for coming by. I'm glad you made it. And my friend from the also kind of sort of from the Windy City, Nick from Nick Flicks Podcast. What's happening?
What's up, man? Good to be here.
It's good to have you.
Yeah, we may get some good weather too, by the way. Totally random, but this just felt really nice, which means something bad's going to happen.
Oh, no.
Well, you just know, in Illinois, we never get good weather this early. It's usually like we get a little stretch, and then so I'm sure we'll get like rain for 10 days straight. But
yeah, it's a nice little tease. I know what you mean. And then obviously in the Chicago area proper, there's sometimes we get all 5 seasons in Chicago. Spring, summer, winter, fall, and construction. Construction is the 5th season here in Chicago. Absolutely. And the real Sean Crummell, not to be confused with any other Sean, but my brother. How's it going?
It's great, except for this camera that keeps zooming in. I got my Papa, so I'm ready to talk Star Wars.
Excellent. You know what? That's okay. That's and you still haven't. So before we started rolling, I had posed a question because your camera was doing a kind of a weird little snap zoom, and I posed the question: where in the Star Wars trilogy do we have probably the only snap zoom in the trilogy? We kind of narrowed it down to the Battle of Endor or the Battle of Hoth. Any final takers on that question?
I'll say Andor, but I don't feel confident about it.
You shouldn't.
No, because I knew it was Hoth, and I'm like, God damn it!
It's got to be Hoth, but I can't picture what it is.
There's a shot. A sequence of shots when the AT-ATs are coming, obviously towards the area there.
Is it the binoculars?
No, there's one weird shot, and again, we all know that Star Wars was kind of saved in the edit room.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is kind of one of those shots where they need kind of a few extra seconds, and they had this one shot where the camera guy did a snap zoom for some reason, and I think they kept it in. It kind of fit in with the action of the sequence there. But there's a rebel soldier that is standing, looking off into the horizon. There is the tower where the laser beam is shooting at the AT-ATs, and it gets energized. And as it gets energized and discharges, the rebel soldier kind of like does this, and then the camera does a little lens snap zoom on it. So you'll have to go back. You'll have to go back and take a look at The Empire Strikes Back, and it's on there, not part of the special editions, because tonight we're going to be talking about the Star Wars special editions. But it's been there forever. I'm surprised you didn't pick that up, Sean.
You are such a camera nerd.
Yes.
I was going to say, like, telling me you're a camera nerd without telling me.
Right, exactly.
Right.
And obviously, if you haven't guessed it, I've got this wonderful panel of folks to really regale us with talking about the Star Wars special editions. And this is going to be an interesting discussion because I've already had one of our followers, Brian Buck, share his disdain for most of the stuff in the special editions, but I've got some alternate takes, and I think it'll be a wonderful discussion. I want to get everybody's takes on it. I know I had sent all you guys notes, and this will be a eye-opening discussion, to say the least. Let's go around the table here and just get some general thoughts about the Star Wars special editions. Without going too deep, I just kind of want to get a feel for the room. And obviously, I do want to say hello to the chat. We've got Vader Rapino. Thanks for coming by. Vader, looking forward to seeing what I sent you. I sent him some stickers, some other items there. And looking forward to seeing... I'm always curious to see where people put the stickers that I sent them, like laptops or lists. Not that I condone vandalism around town, but it's always nice to see a Scarif Scuttlebutt podcast sticker somewhere in the U.S. In St. Petersburg, Florida, and Orlando. There's a couple of Scarif Scuttlebutt stickers somewhere on some mailboxes, so that's always a lot of fun. Crusher Convo's in the chat. JT is in the chat. Thank you so much. And our friends from the Alpha Quadrant, from the Delta Quadrant, one of the quadrants. But let's start with Dan. Your general thoughts about the Star Wars special editions. They came out in 1997. George Lucas is doing a little fiddling around with his movies. What are your overall general thoughts on the Star Wars special editions, Dan?
Well, when they first came out, overall excitement. I was like, what are they going to do with this? But overall, I actually like them. I like. There are some things, obviously, that a lot of people, including myself, would have rather have him left out or not did at all. There weren't the things that were added that didn't need to be added here and there. But I think that if you're just going to look at it, when I just remember the first time I saw it in theaters and everything, and you walked in, and the first shot of the overshot of them going into Tatooine and everything, kind of the overshot, and it was like, basically it was screaming, this is what we can do with CGI, and this is what the future is going to look like, guys. And that just opened my eyes to okay, what is he going to do with the next ones and everything like that. And here again, parts that probably shouldn't have been put in there, the little dance routine in Jabba's palace that has a little bit of cringe to it. I mean, it's catchy, it's cute. It was kind of cool just to kind of see what they can do with the animation and everything. And just kind of liven up the scene a little bit, but I don't really think that it was actually necessary. But overall, I appreciate the special edition for what it is.
Sure. And it's funny, I just put a message up from JT saying that it's 50-50 for him. And I think there's a lot of people that are kind of in his camp, 50-50. There's some things that I like, there's some things that I don't like, but we'll get to that for sure. But it's we're going to really tease in the subject as far as what we thought, why George did it. But David, what about you? Your overall thoughts on the Star Wars special editions when you saw it first?
So I was way too young back then to really remember it. Like I remember when I was in theaters when they did the last. Oh my god. Oh my god. Return of the Jedi when they did that re-release in
Mm-hmm.
what was that 97,
Right.
just before or 90 whatever that was. Um, so I was too young, so I don't really remember them too well back in the day. Obviously, rewatching them, they were okay. Like that's the one thing I'll give about Star Wars is I don't care if they did all that kind of stuff because I just love the way how they took all these practical effects and just made them work back then.
Sure.
Um, yeah, it's a tough one. I'd
Yeah.
say 50-50 as well too.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about it because that's one of the things that I want to discuss with you guys specifically too. Is just I guess a description of the special effects uh, in the '70s versus what George had to work with. When he did the special editions. Let's go down underneath, way under, and I'm going to go to Sean next before his camera does some crazy stuff. But Sean, I know you and I talk a lot on online. We're part of a group of nerds that really get into the weeds on certain things. But um, we I discovered throughout the years that Sean and I are a bit of a kindred spirits. Every time he shows me like a rare Star Wars collectible, I'll double up and show him something similar or something also in that vein.
Or
But
better.
or better, yeah, who knows? But it's collecting is a whole nother show. But Sean, what was your what are your thoughts, your general thoughts on the special editions? I know you and I can probably talk about this for days, but
Oh, we could.
your general thoughts.
In 1997, I absolutely loved it. I was like, oh my God, there's gonna be two different versions of my most favorite three movies in the entire world. Like
Hmm.
Blade Runner has like I don't know, like 15 different cuts or
Right,
whatever.
right.
And I was like, oh my God, I have options. I can watch the original ones that I grew up with, and I can watch this entirely new thing that like the creator is all excited about. I was totally on board for it. And it was like my first job at a movie theater where we got Return of the Jedi special edition in 1997. I was so gung ho for it. And my camera's going crazy again. Sorry about that.
No problem. Yeah, it's and it's funny. It seems like people are not really into the song and dance number. I just put up a couple of posts and comments from JT and Loki. The song and dance number. I know Brian Buck also, who follows the account, was really getting into discussing how he also dislikes the song and dance number. Um, and I think for Return of the Jedi, there seems to be two camps. Do you like the new stuff or are you a lopty neck purist? So we'll see. We'll see what camp Nick is in. But Nick, what about you? What are your general thoughts on
Yeah.
the special editions?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't mind them. I just wish we had an option to watch the original. That's
Mhm.
like
Sure.
it's just it's like Lord of the Rings. Everyone's always like, "Oh, watch the special editions." It's a different movie while the theatrical versions are great too, but it brings more to it. I don't think these do anything to make it better or worse. It just makes it different in my opinion. But I
Hmm.
didn't grow up as a huge Star Wars fan. I became a big Star Wars fan later in life. So I feel like maybe if I had grown up on it, I would really not like all the new changes. It's more of there's just a look to the OG trilogy that can't be beat. So when you start mixing in special effects that clearly look like the prequels, I don't like it because I'm like, yeah, I almost like separating those two worlds because they are so different looking from I mean, the only thing that really connects them is character names and a couple of things, but like the looks are just so drastically different. And obviously, when you're doing practical and basically 5% green screen. I mean, so I don't know. It doesn't like chat my ass like it does, I'm sure, a lot of people. But I also, if George was like, you know what, take away the special editions, we're only going to ever show the original cuts of these, I'd be totally fine with that. I'd be like, yes, please, that's totally fine.
And that's an interesting point. The fact that the look and feel of the original trilogy, the way that the grain is situated on the film, the way the visuals look, um, you know, married to the type of special effects that we see in the prequels, just 2 years later, it is kind of it is a little jarring. But I want to get into our notes here and the big question: why did George do it? And I know that a lot of folks, a lot of Star Wars people should know why George did it. They may or may not agree with why he did it. But who wants to start that controversy? Why did George do it? And do you agree with those reasons, or do you think that's a cop out? Who wants to go with that one?
I'm Go ahead, Sean. It's all you.
I've heard
Hey.
rumors that, well, I've heard two different rumors. One was that for even since he finished it, he was largely disappointed with 70% of the film. I've also heard rumors since he's changed them that his ex-wife did a lot of the human editing aspects, and that, I don't know, maybe there's some portion of money he would have to give her, and that whole fiasco of their relationship might have figured into it. But it's one or the other. Either he was always dissatisfied, or over the years he had more reasons to discount them.
Yeah, I feel like the dissatisfaction of the special effects, and obviously, this group, I'm sure we've seen a lot of behind the scenes documentaries, and we've heard George say that he wasn't happy with one thing, he wasn't happy with this and that. As a filmmaker, as a creative, I can understand, him stepping back and saying, "God, man, I wish I had more money. I wish I had more time. I wish I could have fixed this." We understand the charm when we see the original land speeder, right over the sands of Tatooine, as they say, and it's not really quite there. Again, nostalgia plays a large role in how we perceive these special effects from the 70s. But it's something that, as a creative, George, I can understand George saying, I wish that land speeder was actually floating instead of, Vaseline on the lens to make it look like it's kind of maybe floating. So I can understand some of those changes and why he wanted to do that. And again, as a creative person, there's always this thing where, wish I could have changed this, shoulda, coulda, woulda scenario. So I am completely on board with why he did it. And I'm not sure if I've ever heard the Marsha Lucas situation, but I think I don't know. I don't know how much credence I would give to that, but it's an interesting thought nonetheless.
And I'll say this too, having watched quick plug for Lights Magic, the documentary series on Disney Plus all about ILM, which now has a season 2 coming out next week, which I'm looking forward to. My 4-year-old loves watching it. He calls it more Star Wars. And
Yes.
but like George talks about how painful it was shooting that movie, and in basically every making of Star Wars movie, George talks about what a miserable experience he had with that first one.
Right.
And I do think part of it is just people who do creative things like direct, act, write, whatever it is, you're always really hard on your own work. And I think part of it was in George's head, he always wanted it to look like the prequel series. Like, we have the technology, but it wasn't quite where he wanted it. But he knew, like, we can do this. This is what I would want it to look like, not what it looked like in the actual movie. Like, I know Mark Hamill talks about like the cantina scene. He was really disappointed in because George wanted to do something way more elaborate. But
Sure.
they could only make it look how they could on their budget and with actual practical effects. And part of it is, I think, just George is a perfectionist, like a lot of directors. I mean, I've heard Scorsese talk about shots in like Goodfellas. He's like, "Oh, I should have done this a little quicker." I'm like, "That's perfect. What do you mean? Like, why would you want to change that?" But like,
Right.
they look at their movie and they're like, "God, I could have tweaked that and that and that." And you're like, "You won an Oscar, or like
Yeah.
your movie made $1 billion and everyone loved it. Why are you complaining?" Like,
Sure.
it's just, I think people like George Lucas, I think and especially because he was kind of a, like, once Star Wars happened, that's all he really did in terms of directing. I mean, he's only directed a few movies overall. So like Star Wars was his baby. And I just think the original trilogy was more of like, oh, I wish I could have just had the technology I did in the 90s back in the late 70s and early 80s. So I mean, it's his stuff, so he can do whatever he wants. I just wish it wasn't the end all be all, and it was like, hey, if you want to watch the OG version, great. If you want to watch what I did, awesome. I think that's maybe what made some people mad, is like, oh, this is the only way you could watch it now. There's no other option. Like, whereas, like I said, Lord of the Rings, you have on the DVDs usually, or Blu-rays, it's like, hey, do you want to watch special edition or theatrical version? So
That's why I feel vindicated, and Sean, you can back me up on this. I feel vindicated that every time the original trilogy came out in whatever format, I bought it.
Yep.
Laser discs, Blu-rays,
Yes,
DVDs, the VHSs. I mean, I've got every incarnation of the original trilogy. And when people say, "Oh, I can't watch it," I'm like, you know what? Too bad. So I'll just pop in my laser discs and watch. I'll have to flip it over a couple of times, but I'm there. Dan, you said I can see the smoke coming out of your ears.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I lost my train of thought there. But wasn't it one of the things, I guess, rumors or things, that it was like a screening that George Lucas went to with Steven Spielberg with Jurassic Park, and that was one of his, obviously, his inspirations. He's like, okay, I'm going to do the prequels now. But Jurassic Park came out in 1993, so I don't know if that had any inspiration on him doing the special editions or not.
I
Well,
think it did.
yeah, I think it did too.
Yeah.
I mean,
they were
that
ready
and
to suddenly
that
do
and the
something.
right, that and the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. I mean, they were playing around with special effects and trying to get big movie like special effects down for the small screen because of what George was wanting to do with Star Wars.
well, and really quick too, I mean, Jurassic Park, I think, is one of the movies that does both so well, where the
Sure.
CGI enhances the practical effect. And I think if it was stop motion like they originally were going to do, I don't think it would have the same oomph like it still does 30 something years later, because like they were like, no, we can do this. And I think that probably did give George like oh, damn, I could do now everything I wanted, because
Yeah.
it's at least will look, pretty damn good, or really good, however it was. But yeah, I think that Jurassic Park's maybe the best movie that does both incredibly well, where the practical looks great and then the CGI is pretty flawless for most of it. So,
And
The
it's interesting. Go
The
ahead.
special effects nerd in me wants to correct you and call it go motion. I'm
oh,
sorry.
sorry.
Right,
Okay.
I just love Phil Tippett.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
fair. That's fair.
Right. It's funny, getting back to Star Wars and George Lucas's special effects. I think watching all of that, watching all the work that ILM put into Jurassic Park and some of the films that were there, obviously. I feel like it sparked George Lucas's interest in continuing the research, and we credit George Lucas and ILM for digital cinematography. Obviously, his work with Sony and Panasonic to bring to actually cut out the middleman, which is film in this case, because everybody was shooting on film. They were digitizing the film, making it digital, putting the special effects, and then pumping it back out to film for distribution. And George is like, why do I need the film part? And I know a lot of directors got on his ass for that. There's a lot of films now that are going back to film for aesthetic reasons. A lot of times people miss that grain. When I started my video production company, the big hoopla was, hey, can we make this project look like film? I know you're shooting on video, but let's make it look like film. And I'm like, yeah, all right, well, but that was, obviously that was George's contribution to cinema in general, to be able to, use these tools and kind of democratize the process of filmmaking through digital media. We all have our little, cell phone cameras in our pockets where where at a moment's notice we can shoot a digital film and publish it, and et cetera, et cetera. um, and so, getting back to Jurassic Park and ILM, I mean, do you guys feel like, besides Jurassic Park, and I mentioned the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, and all the stuff that was going on digitally, do you guys feel like some of those things kind of opened the Pandora's box for George to say, you know what, um, I'm going to start my new trilogy, the sequels, but first, let me see what I can do with the original trilogy, if I can kind of, make it better, or at least, pick up that 70% of me not being satisfied, and then maybe make it a little better. Um,
Yeah.
David, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd agree. Like Jurassic Park still looks fantastic to this day. There's a couple of tweaks, we probably could make in today's technology to make it look even better. Um, but
Blasphemy.
even but even look at like the Phantom Menace. Phantom Menace still looks great to this day, in my opinion. Um, it just makes you wonder. It bugs me to a point. Like he didn't need to fix the original trilogy when Attack the Clones clearly could use a few enhancements.
Sure. Yeah.
Because Attack of the Clones still doesn't look great to this day.
Attack of the Clones is funny. I know a lot of people give that movie a lot of hate, but it's the middle film of the prequels that I usually don't go back to watch, but it doesn't bother me as much as it bothers other people. It's too funny.
Yeah.
The
I,
Phantom
I
Menace looks great. Revenge of the
yeah.
Sith still looks great, but
Sure.
Attack the Clones I wouldn't mind seeing them if they could take today's technology and remaster just or re-edit Attack the Clones. It could make it a little bit more better with the fan base.
Sure. Sure.
I like that it tried to make a mystery movie out of it. You didn't know quite what
Right.
Count Dooku was doing. I don't know if it pulled it off successfully, but I respected
That's
it
one of
for.
the that's one of the reasons that I really enjoy that. It's kind of like a mystery movie, like a detective story. So I kind of like that. I want to pose this question in general, I guess, and I want Sean to start on it. The fact that George really, dove into digital cinema. What are your thoughts in general about that? And do you think that that George went overboard with the special edition, or do you feel like they served a purpose?
Uh, oh man, I feel like we could talk 3 hours just on this.
Of course, we can.
Besides the original trilogy on VHS, I used to watch Star Wars. Oh crap, I'm forgetting the name. The behind the scenes that came out after Return of the Jedi.
From
Oh,
Star
Behind
Wars
the
to
Magic.
Jedi.
From Star Wars to Jedi.
Yeah.
I knew the lines of that documentary as well as I knew the movies.
Right.
And there's one specific thing where George is like, a lot of filmmakers waste a lot of screen time on backgrounds and showing off the amount of work that they put into a shot. And it's all about story. It's about characters. I'm really paraphrasing. Um, I feel like a lot of the special editions were just George showing off what he could do with his computer, and even though I loved them back in the day, I have come to despise them the further we go on from generation of special edition to generation of special edition, because you can't even watch the original one that came out in theaters. He's made so many changes. There's like 5 different versions of just the special edition. And honestly, I have a VCR in the bedroom. I turn it on when I go take a shower, and I had on the special edition. They do the little documentary at the beginning, and the announcer is like, "Now sit back and prepare to watch George Lucas's definitive version of Star Wars." And I'm like, "Well, what version at this point?" Like, dude,
Yeah.
like,
They were still working on just a couple of weeks before the actual the original release. They were still working on soundtracks and audio mixing and things like that. I think Ben Burtt and George Lucas were so tied to whether they would mix it in stereo or start creating multi tracks for what became 5.1 or even THX. So there are certain audio mixes that a lot of people are not familiar with as far as versions of Star Wars. We usually come to think of versions of Star Wars that have maybe different special effects, but there are different mixes, even as subcategories for the different versions of Star Wars, which can drive you nuts.
it drives me nuts in the special edition. Luke is leaving the Wampa cave, and there's a sound effect of his lightsaber turning off, but it's clearly still on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think George was one of those directors who didn't like the process of directing. He liked the end result. It's part of why he pitched Indiana Jones to Steven Spielberg. Was he's like, I want to watch this movie, but I don't want to make it, because I think making Star Wars and trying to do something that wasn't like trying to do like a big movie and just kind of drove him nuts. And I think that's why he's produced a lot, because I think he's a good idea man. I don't think he's a good director in how to work with people, because yeah, you're running the show, but like I know like all the actors always joke about how they're like, God, he was terrible to talk to. We'd be like, is this scene good? And it's like, oh, just faster, more intense. And it's like, well, it's not really a direction. It sounds like you just want us to rush through everything, which you can't. Like, it's a movie. You want to get to know the characters. It's why it's amazing that the first Star Wars is as good as it is, because everything basically, like, for what a bad movie should be, because of like the behind the scenes stuff, is Star Wars. The special effects not working right for most of it at first. The actors basically being told, just let's go, don't think about it, just go, it's fine, we'll fix it. Like, there wasn't like these, hey, let's talk about your characters and stuff. And then you end up with all these beloved characters who I think the sequels enhanced all of them better and better. Whereas like the first movie definitely was like we're just introducing you guys to these. And then I think with a better director, which you got in especially Empire Strikes Back, it's like now the characters are way more developed. And you can just tell there's a difference in the acting style, I think, a little bit between Star Wars, New Hope, and then Empire. But I think too, like, again, the special editions don't enhance anything with the story, and that's the ultimate thing, is like it just makes it look more like the prequel. Otherwise, I don't think anything he added was like, oh man, that really ties a big. The only thing that's kind of cool is I think when Han is talking to Jabba, I think that's like a neat little like, hey, but it's also planting, yeah, but it's planting the seed for something for the sequel that really 2 more movies after that, because you don't
Right.
really get Jabba in Empire, and then you get him obviously in the first half of
Right.
Return of the Jedi. But like, that's cool, but it also, if you took that out, doesn't change the movie. I think that's
Right.
really the only scene where I go, okay, I could see if that's all he wanted to do was like, hey, there's this great scene we shot, but now we're gonna digitally put in Jabba instead of whoever they had. Okay, that's fine. But like, making it look like the the prequel series just didn't do anything for me to be like, oh, okay. Again, it's just George showing off like, hey, my computer's really good, guys. Look at this. Look how cool this is.
Yeah, that's funny. All right, so let's reel it in a little bit, and I'm going to ask you guys, in general, do you feel like these films, the special edition Star Wars versions, do you feel like they have been? Well, Nick, you already said that you don't feel like they've enhanced anything for the most part. Um, which of the three films took advantage more of the special editions from your perspective? What do you guys think, Dan?
I want to say A New Hope. And the only reason I say that is because of, obviously the overshot of Tatooine and everything, but the trench run on the Death Star, um, the the special edition version of that was what they were able to do with the fighting and everything. It was cooler to me. I don't know why. But I would have to say out of the three, it would have to be A New Hope.
Okay. All right. David, what about you? Which one do you like best
Yeah.
as far as special editions?
Yeah, I'd agree. A New Hope, it's the one that sticks out to me the most, even though I saw Return of the Jedi in theaters. And yeah, definitely New Hope. It just, I guess, 20 years of newer technology, right?
Okay.
It just
All right.
makes A New Hope look a little bit better here and there.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, I would agree. The Tatooine stuff is fantastic. The additions that they put on there, the Death Star battle was great to see. Some of the new special effects when it comes to the X-wings and some of the effects there. Nick, what about you? Which film took advantage of the special edition workover?
Yeah, I agree with the first two. Like I think the one I like the least is Return of the Jedi, because again, they just did that music number where it's like, oh, it just like, even I think kids don't care about that. They're not like, oh yay, the weird looking alien lady's gonna sing, and like but no, I do think A New Hope, because it, again, I think that was a better way to go. Hey, here's what I would have liked to have done if I had the technology back in '77. But again, I think that was the only one that felt like, okay, that's actually kind of cool. The rest of them felt like, okay, well, I've done it to A New Hope. Now I'm going to keep doing it to the other two. And you're like, okay.
Well, it worked out better than George's original trilogy in 3D. Or actually, no, it was the prequels in 3D. I think he only did one, right?
But they did edits to all the way up till Return of the Jedi. There's a gigantic Jabba door, and I think they left it in the special edition versions of those, like whatever version of special edition we're on.
All right, Sean, Kindred Spirit, Don't Let Me Down. What do you think? Which special edition was the best one for you?
They're all terrible. Which one does the most visually to try and bring the effects up to modern day, which I would argue is like our modern day sensibility shouldn't be forced onto previous generations. I think it ruins the soundtrack of John Williams did. It ruins the pacing. It looks great for the space battles. Uh, as much as I loved as a kid seeing this world expanded, uh, I think it was like 1997, like August of 1997. My mom was like, "Oh, he just did an article or an interview with a newspaper, and he said he's never releasing the originals again." And I was like, "This is madness. What are you talking about? How can you?" I have such a love hate of George Lucas. I'm like, it's so good and it's so bad. The It's like this guy like championed never changing the original vision of a director for movies for so long. Even like Turner was colorizing movies, and they got flack about it. I think in front of Congress,
Right.
and George was testifying. But then people will argue, oh, it's George's vision. He can do whatever he wants. And I'm like, well, I would argue that Richard Marquand did Return of the Jedi and Irving Kershner did Empire Strikes Back. So George was just the money. He didn't get the final vision necessarily. George started it. I love him for it, but he had an army of people that made him shine into the future, and I'm so frustrated that they've dragged their feet so childishly to have both versions available, or even all 7 of them, because George can't make up his mind whether or not R2 should be in front of a rock or not, or behind a rock or not.
But imagine the
Right.
money they would make right now if they were like, we're re-releasing the original theatrical like it was when they came out. I'm like, they would make millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars because so many people who have never think about people like my kids, anyone who's a teenager, probably have never watched the original cuts of the. And now obviously it's going to be on a Blu-ray or a 4K, but like just that actual look of them, and it's like,
Sure.
why would you just not do that? That just doesn't make any sense. But
I'm just from that generation that I feel like the last vestiges of the people like Phil Tippett that grew up with like Ray Harryhausen as
Mhm.
heroes from like Seventh Voyage of Sinbad and all the classic special effects. You could put model effects in a modern movie and I would be over the moon. I'm like, I know it looks fake, but it looks so awesome. And I, I
Yeah,
don't I don't know if kids have that sensibility now, but like
I don't think they do because a while ago I had asked anyone that was following the account, anyone that was young or younger, I guess, at what year do you cut off from seeing supposedly old movies? And obviously it's 2025. I mean, people are not looking at movies older than 2020, which is crazy to me.
that's crazy.
It's
Mhm.
it's
But
nuts.
is that the fault of the parents? Because my dad introduced me to Seventh Voyage of
Sure.
Sinbad. I was born in '81. Return of the Jedi was my Star Wars movie, and that Rancor and the Gamorrean Guard and Luke in his black outfit were like the trifecta of my childhood. But like, I had
Well,
such an appreciation for movies, and I don't know. I think George doing the special editions, it made it easier for everyone, but it's like the syndrome thing from The Incredibles: when everyone's special, no one will be. And I feel like that has been like carried through into
well,
current day.
it's to go back to Jurassic Park. It's Goldblum's comment about everyone
Yes,
spends all this time if they could, and what they should ask is if they should. And
right.
so many times, it's like I think you are right though about like parents showing their kids, and I just think it depends too. Like, how does it look? Are you explaining to them like, hey, like if you showed a kid now King Kong, if the kid's 10, you might have to show him that when he's like 5, like the old school, like
yeah,
I mean, where it's claim, the motion stuff like that, where
That would be
yeah,
actually stop
or
motion.
no, that was stop motion, yeah.
yeah, yeah,
But like
yeah.
it's like
Mhm.
watching the old like Rudolph, specials
Right.
and stuff.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I don't think like my 7 and or almost 7 and 4 year old, they would sit and watch it with me, but they watch Jaws with me because they're autistic and don't understand what's going on. So, but they're just like, oh, I'm sitting and watching a movie with dad, and I feel like kids would either they don't have the attention span for it or they really do, and it's kind of the parents have to like turn them into a lover of that old stuff. But I think like teens now wouldn't want to sit and watch Jaws, or even people in like their early 20s would be like, well, I'd rather watch a crappy CGI shark and that just looks awful, but the movie's just 30 people getting ripped apart than like watch a movie with like these are characters
Mhm.
being developed and they're trying to do something. Or even the original Star Wars. I mean, I don't know if you didn't show them anything and you're like, "Here, watch this one first," they might be
Hmm.
like, "Oh, this movie's way too um corny for me." Whereas like you watch Mandalorian first or
Sure.
something that's a little more modern, you're like, "Oh, damn, this is really cool." And then you go back and watch. So I think it's really a case by case with a lot of people. It just depends.
I
Yeah,
think it's
and I feel like David feels like he's being attacked because he's the youngest one out of the bunch here, and I wanted so I'm going to ask you, David, like what is it? And the love of film, the love of movies. I think it's an individual thing, and obviously, your parents can show you movies, but I think if you don't have that spark in your brain and your heart for what movies represent, and it's just more than watching a story unfold on screen. Sean, you and I talk about this a lot. Is what is that movie or what is that filmmaker telling you? What is that movie showing you? What experiences are you getting from that? And I think, when it comes to newer audiences, are we seeing that? Are we seeing the power of cinema transposed onto a young person's soul? David, what are your thoughts on cinema in general, and what is it about movies that, because I know you're an actor, what brings you in?
It's tough. Like it obviously, ever since all the streaming stuff has really just exploded, it's cinema's changing. Because I think even now they're saying like producers that are casting actors just by their social media presence now.
Oh my God,
Um,
yes.
and I don't like that. I think that's a horrible way to go. But these kids now. I don't think they could sit around watching Silence of the Lambs or go back and watch the original Frankenstein, the original Dracula's. I don't think it would interest them enough. And that's a shame because we've had some amazing cinema for the last decades, and a lot of these kids just can't be bothered now, and it's a sad state.
It's the, oh, this thing is boring, and you're like, what are you talking about? It's great dialogue. It's like when you hear people say it about Andor or like a show on HBO or whatever, and they're like, I don't know, it's a little too boring for me. And you're like, what do you mean boring? Like,
Yeah,
just because they're not fighting doesn't mean and I think that's what's harder for younger audiences. It's like, but streaming also changed the game too. Remember, we all grew up at a time where the only way to watch a movie was in a
Blockbuster.
theater, or like if when VHS has started, but you had to wait months if you
sure.
missed a movie. Not like,
Mhm.
oh, a movie was out in theaters and now in 2 weeks you could get it digital because it's not performing at the box office. It's like
Right.
it's just a totally different, like eh, I feel bad for people growing who are like young now and won't have those, like, oh man, you just don't understand what it was like to go see a big movie with people in a theater, and then you had to wait, and then you had to kind of let it marinate for months and months until you get to see it again on VHS or
Sure.
something. And now
Yeah,
it's like, nah,
dude, that's
okay,
how.
I'll wait till it comes to streaming.
That's
Dude,
actually a
that's how
really
we
good
felt with.
argument for them to bring back the original movies just for that fact alone, just to
Yeah,
show everybody, hey, this is where we all came from and this is
Mhm.
where we're going to be. That's the beauty in those, and the way I see both the original trilogy and the special edition, because it shows, it not so much shows, gee whiz, look what I can do with a computer. It also shows that, hey, this is the future of what is come is, and I'm going to be the one that they're going to stand on the shoulders of and watch and basically be a futurist, because that's, I mean, he did that with the original trilogy. I mean, he was ahead of his time on all of that, and all the special effects, everything. And then so basically he wanted to one up himself. His ego, I don't know, maybe his ego got in the way a little bit, with over the a little bit of over CGI and a lot of stuff. But I think that it was the foundation of that was, hey, I'm an innovative filmmaker, and not just that, I'm more into, I mean, just all the branches of what he did with Skywalker Sound, ILM, all of it. And so, yeah, he was way ahead of his time on all that, and I don't think he gets enough credit for that. And when you're comparing the original trilogy, the original release versus the special edition, um, I think they have their own merits. Obviously, I'm going to side with the original release and everything, but what they did with it, I'm not happy with some. Um, really happy with what they did with the others, just because of the showing of the technology and where we can go with it.
Sure.
He always
I'd agree.
he always said like he wanted to push. He's like, filmmaking now is not interesting to me. Filmmaking 100 years is interesting to
Mhm.
me. My problem with that is that I have no idea what his idea of filmmaking in 100 years looked like. I was like, I understand the art form and the process here. What do you think that's going to look like? Because current day in 2025, it is three guys, maybe one, in a room
Yeah.
using AI to generate images that do not connect with me on any effing level.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about that because Sean, you mentioned Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, and for me, when I watched that as a kid, that was fascinating. The special effects that were done even during that time, where you have, these skeleton creatures come out from the ground and battle a live, action actor with swords interacting in the same scene. As a kid, I was like blown away. And I've said this on the podcast so many times before. Besides the spaceships and laser swords, for me, Star Wars interested me as a kid because of the special effects, because of
Oh,
the
love
work
them.
that ILM did, and the ability to create something out of nothing and make
Hmm.
that universe so rich and so deep. Obviously George is known as a world builder, similar to some of the other greats, but there are certain things in Star Wars that will never be matched, and haven't been. A lot of people, obviously, since 1977, people have been trying to recapture lightning in a bottle. And something like that is like one of those things that comes in, once in a lifetime. We're never going to get another Michael Jordan. We're never going to get another Star Wars. Um,
Well,
it is what it is.
sometimes art is dependent on the medium. Like the way the medium hits you is is going to define its lasting impression. And
Sure.
like to me, like all those model effects, I was like, those guys have the best action figures in the world
Yeah.
and spaceships and stuff. And I was like, oh my god, I wanted to live in Star Wars just based on how real the sets were and stuff. The prequels, like, well, the story you can take or leave, but like I felt no connection to all the CG effects. There were no models, there were no monsters really. They got rid of my boy, the puppet creepy Yoda from the Phantom Menace. I still love that guy. But like, yeah, man.
Exactly.
Well,
And
Who
it's
remembers the
funny. It's
hype?
funny. Yeah, no, and it's funny how George says, back in the day, I'm not sure if a puppet's going to work. This is a major character. Am I
Yeah.
am I going to trust a puppet? But what was it about that puppet that it worked?
He
You
even
know?
says it's like
No.
until that character, especially the C3PO, till that character is on screen and moving, you don't know if it's gonna work. And I'm like, it's the risk that makes the art worth it, man.
Yeah, yeah,
you almost
Yeah.
don't find many a movie generally that's a classic. There was a big risk involved. One of my
Yeah.
favorite movies, Jaws.
oh,
That shark, if
Yeah.
it doesn't work at all, well then that you have to show it. And they're like, well, we're doing this out on the ocean. We're not going to film this in a water, big pool or whatever in a sound stage. We're going to shoot it in the elements. And it turned out to be one of the best parts of the movie is that they're like, we don't need to show it. You just need to see the fin for half the movie and know that
right.
there's something in the water. And then we just
Hmm.
need it to work for the third act, really. But I want to be fair to kids too now because it's easy to make the argument because we all grew up in different times, whereas like I hear it with phones all the time when people who are older will be like, "Oh, I was never like that when I was a kid." I'm like, "Yeah, but if you had a cell phone when you were 10, you
Yeah.
probably would be just like a 10-year-old now."
Right. Yeah.
Like you got to give people the benefit of the doubt of a little bit. I'm not again, I
Yeah.
think the movie industry, it's why guys like Nolan, why I love watching his stuff is because he will still try to champion for as much of practical of what he can. I mean, Oppenheimer, the frickin' when he's thinking of the equations in his head and that light thing spinning, Killian Murphy's like, that was right in front of me. I'm staring at someone doing the thing, and it's like he could have just done that digital, but was like, no, I want to do as much of it as practical as I can. And like I can't wait to see his Odyssey movie next year because I can only imagine with a budget like his what it'll look like with practical effects. That's going to be
Yeah.
incredible. But I just think it's why certain movies become classics and they're very hard to find. But Star Wars also is a big benefactor of coming out at the right time. It's the
Sure.
end of the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Hollywood movies are depressing movies, and he comes out with this space movie that hadn't been really done for decades in a more serious way. But the one documentary about it, the Making an Empire documentary, yeah, it's like, hey, if this comes out too early, it's Buck Rogers and no one cares about it. And if it comes out too late, again, it's like, it's too campy, don't like it. Like, it was like it had to come out at the perfect time, and it really did. And then, I mean, it's launched a legacy that's crazy. Now, it also became the thing it didn't want to, which was, it's like the Yankee, you're like, oh, we don't want to become the studio system. And then
Sure.
what is it? It becomes a studio system where it's like, okay,
Yeah.
Star Wars is the studio. Like, it's not.
Yeah, and I feel that would be an interesting topic too for another show, especially with you guys because you guys are so tied into that. But it's I feel like sometimes that is the eventual. If George took Star Wars to his deathbed and never sold it to Disney in 2012, would we be okay with that? And I know, the new Star Wars post the sale has been hit or miss. There have been some cool things that some of us like. There's also been some stuff that we don't like. But that's always a hard question. Do we let something as rich as Star Wars, that galaxy, that universe, do we let it die with the author, or are we okay with that author just trying to, give it a life of its own? It's almost like when you're a parent, you don't want to keep your child sequestered in your home forever. You want to let it just, live its own life and be free and make its own decisions. So it's difficult. It's hard. I don't know. I want to get back to, Sean, you probably had kind of the strongest opinion as far as George Lucas and working on the special editions. We talked about why he did it. I do want to say, and I'll backtrack a little bit because I think for me, one of the original trilogy films that really took advantage of the special editions for me was The Empire Strikes Back. I know Captain Wreck said something similar in the chat. I think the fact that Cloud City was a little bit more opened, you saw a lot more of the backgrounds and stuff like that. Some of the technical stuff, the Battle of Hoth, a lot of those prints were cleaned up and the matte lines were eliminated. So they cleaned up a lot of that frame. Cloud City overall looks beautiful, right down to when Vader and Luke have their battle on Cloud City. All that stuff looks incredibly fantastic. It's one of my favorite. It's probably my favorite film, bar any genre. The Empire Strikes Back. But I wanted to get back to just the fact that George did what he did. I know we talked about George, testifying at Congress for authors or studios really to mess with his stuff. I know Disney, did the whole McClunky thing. Even after Star Wars was put on the Disney streaming, they continued to fiddle with it for whatever reason. I don't know what the backstory is with the whole McClunky thing.
I thought that was like George's last edit.
Oh yeah, I don't know, but even prior to that, I know there was a story circulating over the fact that he didn't want Han Solo to be kind of like a cold-blooded killer, and he wanted Greedo to shoot first, and then that would cause Han Solo to shoot in self-defense.
Does he just want to neuter Han entirely?
Like he's kind of have to be though to shoot first and miss from across a table.
Yeah,
with your gun aimed right at him. Like,
well, that's why that shot looks weird because it's like the gun went like, phew. It's like yeah.
Like Han's already kind of comical in Return of the Jedi for the most part, but like you take away his coolest moment one of his coolest moments from the entire trilogy, and it's like, oh, he's just an idiot. And it's like, please stop changing things.
Well, there was I think there was some interview with Harrison Ford, and he actually talked about the fact that the whole "I love you, I know" scene, and the
Mhm.
fact that George didn't originally. That was him. Harrison Ford improv that because the reason behind that is that that's not what a scoundrel, some kind of guy would like me would do, and that goes back to to the Greedo, the Han shot first. That that's something that Han would have done back then, and that him saying "I know" instead of "I love you" back, kind of mirrors that entire little piece there.
Which also shows that like the creator of something. I work on a comic book. I'm trying to build my own thing. You don't always know the right choice. You know what you want to do, but you're not always right. So like it's
Well,
like
and
the whole
especially
thing
because
with him changing all the special effects. It's like, George, you came up with it. An army of people made you amazing. Like, and to change all that totally disvalues every contribution that they've made to you. If you had released both versions of the movies together, you could do that till eternity. I'll probably still buy it. I have like 10 copies on VHS.
Right.
So like
yeah.
it just drives me insane.
But it is crazy to try to take that element out of Han because it's like the whole movie, he's like, I'm not going to help you guys. I'm getting paid. I'm getting paid. Like, yeah, he's supposed to not be a good guy who
Yeah.
changes his mind in the finale and then kind of redeems himself. Like, they're like, well, I don't want him to shoot first. I don't want him to be that cruel. I'm like, he's
Yeah.
talking about leaving them all the time and being like, I'm not fighting this battle. Why would I do that? Like,
It's called an
yeah,
arc.
yeah, exactly. It's like, it's so bizarre. They're like, no, I don't. And also, he's killing a terrible guy. It's not like he's shooting some Girl Scout who's trying to sell him space cookies, and they're like, well, that was maybe a little too brutal, so we'll make her an assassin in an edit or something. Like, I don't know. That's such a
Yeah.
weird. See, that's where a director you got to go, George. It's okay. You don't touch it. It's fine. It's fine. I
Yeah,
know.
and I feel like George has gone through a lot of things emotionally in his life, with during the script writing for Temple of Doom, that everybody says that is the darkest of the Indiana Jones films. He was going through a divorce. He was going through his, his issues there.
Yep.
I think when he started to, renegotiate, I guess, Han and Greedo's scene, he had adopted his son, I think, at the time, and I think he was playing the role of dad and trying to figure out like what kind of things that he would leave his children to see or watch. And I guess, from a parental perspective, I can kind of understand that, but I can also agree that that was such a goofy change, especially during the Han and Greedo stuff.
Yeah, man, he even said it, or not he, but Karen Allen in the Crystal Skull behind the scenes is like, we're all much different people than we were in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like, we've all gone through, we're now grandparents. So, like,
Hmm.
the views we had when we were in our 30s are not the views that we have now. So, yeah, I'm totally agreeing with you in a roundabout way.
Yeah. But this begs the question too about and George obviously is not the only one that has done kind of like a special director's cut in general. But I think a lot of the director's cuts that we hear that goes along with the nomenclature of director's cut seem to be cuts that a director would restore after a studio has kind of mandated or told that director, I need you to cut this scene. We need to cut 12 minutes off of here. Things that a director decides against, but has to do because of the pressure of the studio. And George obviously is the director. He's the creator of his own thing, and he's doing these things and recutting and reinvigorating some of the old material that he's responsible for. What do you guys think of director's cuts in general? Do you guys think it's a good idea to have a director's cut come out after a movie's already, like the Rebel Moon director's cut, which is like what, 7 hours longer than the 12 hours that it already is?
I
Uh,
sat
what,
through it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
I
did.
think it's kind of used as a gimmick for some directors. Like, unfortunately, Zack Snyder now, everything comes out to like, where's the Snyder cut? And it's like, either do your version or don't do the movie if it's going to be that drastically different, man. Like, you don't, you shouldn't be giving a director like him carte blanche to do a movie, but then go, whoa, 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 wait, we need to cut it though a certain way, and then you could do your version. I'm like, then just do his version, and if his version fails, then go, well, we'll try to recut it to the PG-13 version and whatever. But I think it just depends. There's a movie with Mel Gibson in the late '90s called Payback. That the director's cut is way better, and all they changed was like 3 scenes they tweaked a little bit, and it changes the movie, in my opinion. So like that's a director's cut done well, I think, where I go, that should have been the theatrical cut, because one scene was cut down, another scene they added, and it just made the movie way better, I thought. And
Yeah.
but then other times, just director's cuts are just like I said, you turn it in and they're like, let's see the Snyder cut, the error cut, the this cut, the that cut. I'm like, okay, but is it going to make the movie that much better, or is it just the director didn't want to say no to an extra hour and a half that then makes the movie 4.5 hours long, or I don't know. So again, case by case, but I just think it depends. Like, I don't know. I haven't watched a ton of director's cuts that made me go like, oh my God, that's now life changing compared to the original movie.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of director's cuts that would make me say that either. It's either that's kind of cool.
I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind seeing the Batman Forever director's cut because I'd love to see
Oh,
what. Because we've seen a few things from Batman Forever, but that movie definitely could have been. I'd love to have seen what Joel Schumacher had up his sleeve.
That's a good one.
yeah.
I will only watch the first two Aliens movies as director's cuts. And I especially love that they're still available in the original format. Like, I can watch any version that I want. Maybe that's just because I love film so much, like growing up, that it's like having a film school on DVD. I love having all the options.
Absolutely, I agree. I'm okay with director's cuts, but what I would say is that if you're going to do a director's cut, don't get rid of the original. Don't
Yes.
Sure.
don't make it obsolete. Um, and because I'd love to see a director's cut of Revenge of the Sith. There were a lot of key moments that were left on the cutting block for that movie that have more significance now because of the Andor series.
Oh, really?
And yeah, and
Oh,
so
that's right.
the whole formation of the rebellion and the quote unquote resistance at the time, wherever where Padme, there's a cut scene and they have Padme and Mon Mothma, Bail Organa. They're all talking about what they could do to get the emergency powers away from Palpatine. And that time it was the small formation. It was basically the start of the rebellion, and that was cut from the movie. And so having a director's cut of that movie might actually be a good thing. But whatever you do, don't get rid of the original, because you have to have a base. It's not so much the basis. It's to show the fans and everything. This is what we did, and this is what and if you love it, great. If you don't, and we're gonna do a cut over here, and if you can still watch this over here and it's still available, but we're going to do this over here. And not saying that one's better than the other. It's just saying that this is what the director wanted.
Sure. Yeah. And again, we have a follower. You guys know him. He's into physical media. I think physical media is definitely something that I hope never goes away. Even what was the early controversy when Disney Plus started? Daryl Hannah's butt was showing in the movie Splash, and they covered up her butt because children shouldn't see butts.
But kids think butts are hilarious.
Well, now they could advertise movies like Anora because of the Hulu Plus, Hulu being included. So now it's like really showing an ass is not that
right,
not that bad.
Exactly. Well, we can definitely talk about this ad nauseum, and
Mm.
especially with you guys, this has been a fantastic discussion. All right, so let's do final verdicts. Do the Star Wars special editions deserve a place in history? What are your thoughts on that, Dan? Let's go with you first.
Absolutely. They belong in film history. They belong in just a an example of possibly remastering some parts of movies that what we can do with digital technology. It belongs in film history that way. But I don't really. I think they should bring back the the original theatrical cut just for that reason alone.
Sure. David, what about you?
Yeah, same. I'd agree. The theatrical cuts are what made these things special. Um, Obviously, like there was a lot of things in the other movies that we all would love to see that they cut out, and hopefully they expand on that in future shows. We're all talking about. Um, but yeah, it's Star Wars. Anything for Star Wars, I'm 100% down for. It's a franchise I've grown up with, and it's the other one that I love as well too.
Excellent. The other white meat, as I call Star Trek on the show from time to time, right? Excellent. Nick, what about you? Does Star Wars special editions deserve a place in history?
Yeah, I still think so because whether you love it or hate it, it's impacted a lot of people, and to me, that's the point of film. Not everything needs to be celebrated necessarily to be part of film history, but I do think that those movies earn the right that whether you love the special editions or not, I still think they hold like a very special place in the history of movies. So
Excellent. Sean, I know, like I said, you had probably the strongest opinion here regarding the special editions, but what are your thoughts on that?
I love the original versions that came out in 1997 when I had my first job in at a movie theater. Uh, they do those versions should be preserved. The original versions, even though they have their own complicated history, absolutely should be preserved because they changed the face of the world. And the fact that George refuses to acknowledge their impact drives me insane. Especially because I'm like, I read 1984 and Fahrenheit 451 in like the same year. So if you're gonna try and alter history, I'm bigly against that, and it drives me crazy. Um, I like I was talking to a coworker who's in her 20s, and she didn't even know Jabba wasn't even in the original Star Wars. And I'm like, oh my god, you make me want to punch George in the face. Like the I like the original or the originals. I like the special editions from the 90s. They definitely were pinnacles in cinema. They each had their impacts because like for the next however many years all we got were special editions on DVDs from different directors that were like, "Oh, we can do this now." And it's like
Yeah.
I like them, I hate them. I really like the first version. I can't stand every version after them.
Yeah.
Like, oh, and I'm hating Christensen. And I'm like, you look nothing like that Anakin guy the last
that
scene.
that's the most egregious one is the ending where it's Hayden Christensen and I'm like, what? That's
I still hate the Jabba rocks or the Jedi rocks. Max Rebo. Like I said, I was born in 81. I was like 2 going to the drive-in watching Return of the Jedi, and the film freaking broke when the Ewoks showed up. So maybe that was an omen. But like
There you go. There you go.
Jedi is like my movie, and I love the Max Rebo band. So like the problem with that scene, not to get off on a tangent, but like at least like they were like, oh, we just always wanted to add a musical number to it. And I was like, all right, I can understand that. But the original version, Lapteen Neck, took the universe seriously. The Jedi Rocks made it a farce. Like, oh yeah, hey, look, now we're dancing. And I'm like, please stop. But like,
That's too
yeah.
funny. That's too
Anyway,
funny.
yeah, they both deserve the originals absolutely changed the face of the world. George strikes me as Big Brother trying to strike them from people's memories. So that's my biggest problem with it.
All right. Well, whenever it happens, I'll invite you guys back, and we'll discuss the Star Wars Holiday Special Edition, and we'll see where
Wait, what?
we're at on. We'll see where we're at on that. Absolutely. But guys, thank you so much for joining this special. And again, tonight we're recording, but this show with all the bells and whistles will pop in your feed somewhere around May 25th. The actual Star Wars day, none of this May the 4th crap.
Hey man, that's don't you start with that.
Yeah, that's there you go. But if you guys are listening to this on the audio feed, I want to make a quick announcement. I'm going to be giving away. I got a couple of these mini Han Solo Millennium Falcon Funko Pops, which are really awesome. I've got 3 of them to give away. Listen to the show when it drops in May, and I'll give you details on how to win one of these Han Solo Millennium Falcon mini pops. Oh, actually, they're right here. I don't know why. Here, let's do this. They are right over here.
Ooh.
They're so cool.
Fly it around the screen, Ro.
But they are definitely really cool, and I've got a couple to give away. I love giving stuff away. I don't like going to the post office, but that's another story. Excellent. Let's go around the table real fast and show people or tell people where people can find you to say hello there. Dan is muted.
Oh no.
There we go. Sorry about that. You can reach me on the X / Twitter at DarthDad0822.
Excellent. David.
You can find me primarily not much on X or Twitter anymore, but Blue Sky and Instagram, actor Damon86, Reacher and Handmaid's Tale, Traps, so much more.
Excellent, excellent. Good to see you there, and looking forward to all the stuff. Keep us updated. Nick from Nickflix Podcast.
Yeah, give me a follow, Nickflix Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky X at Nickflix Pod, and then Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So yeah, give it a listen.
Excellent, excellent. And the real Sean Crummell, artist extraordinaire. Where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. I have a YouTube channel, but no time to do anything new. But you can go check out drawing videos or comic reviews from the 80s and 90s on there. And I also have a comic at crumbsworldcomics.com. So check me out there.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, guys. All wonderful. What a wonderful panel. If you guys have anything else to contribute, guys in the chat or people that are listening or watching us afterwards, we have a Scuttlebutt hotline, 773-234-8659. Leave us a voicemail and tell us what you think of the Star Wars Special Edition. I will include it in the show in May, and you can be part of the show. Until next time, thank you everyone in the chat on this very special Scarif Live recording session. Again, this show comes out with all the bells and whistles sometime in May, just in time for May 25th. We got a couple of other shows that we are prepping for May 25th, so keep a lookout at this space. Until next time, remember, it's always sunny on Scarif, and that is the Scuttlebutt. Talk to you guys later.
Hunshot.